The Miami Heat are now only one win away from the NBA Finals, and by the time you're watching this, they could have already made it. It's just been a crazy turnaround for this team after having a mediocre regular season, and right now, nobody wants anything to do with them because of one man named Jimmy Butler. In this video, I'm going to show the whole timeline of how this Heat team rebuilt from losing the Big Three to where they are today. But before I begin this video, I would really appreciate it if you would drop a like and subscribe. It only takes 5 seconds, plus you can always change your mind. I'm on the road to 10k subscribers, and we are just growing super fast right now. Alright, so I'm starting out this video in 2015, the year after Lebron headed home back to Cleveland. The Heat, of course, already won 2 championships out of the last 4 seasons before this, so they were not desperate to win it all, but they still had a good team and wanted to have a good competitive season. I guess technically, the Heat never fully lost their Big Three right away after LeBron left, because the Heat signed Dywane Wade to a 2-year, $34 million deal, but he was on the downside of his career and obviously wasn't the same player, but he was still definitely good. Also, Bosh was still with the team until a bunch of stuff happened that made him retire. The Heat also signed Luol Deng on a 2-year deal from Cleveland, and basically, he was just swapping places with LeBron. So after all this went down, the Heat started the 2015 season with a starting lineup of Norris Cole, Dywane Wade, Chris Bosh, Shawnee Williams, and Luol Deng. The Heat struggled at the start of the season with a 14-20 record, and they ended up making a move for Goran Dragic and Zoran Dragic for 4 players and 2 first-round picks. Later into the season, Chris Bosh developed some blood clots, which was terrible news for him and the team, and the Heat finished the season with 37 wins as the 10 seed in the East. Bosh and Wade both averaged over 21 points a game for the season and were all-stars. In the 2015 NBA draft, the Heat had the 10th pick and selected Justice Winslow, and I don't think I'm going to mention his name for the rest of this video because he turned out to be an absolute bust. Some noise the Heat did make in the 2015 offseason was re-signing Goran Dragic to a massive 5-year, $90 million deal. Basically, the Heat just ran it back in 2016 because they knew they were better than their record showed. They also traded Mario Chalmers and James Ennis away to the Grizzlies early at the start of the season. In the 2016 season, Chris Bosh had to stop playing basketball for good due to seriously developing blood clot issues, and even though this was a bigger deal than basketball, he was a big loss for Miami, and they had to find a way to fill his shoes. They later signed Joe Johnson out of free agency to try to stop the bleeding a little bit. The Heat finished out 2016 with a 48-34 record and were the 3rd seed in the East. They were definitely back on track, but struggled in the playoffs, barely escaping Charlotte in the first round, and then losing to the Raptors in 7. In the following offseason, the Heat brought back Hassan Whiteside on a massive deal after losing Luol Deng to the Lakers. This ended up being a pretty bad signing, and things were starting to fall apart for Miami with Dywane Wade deciding to leave for Chicago in free agency. Basically at this point, the Big Three was over, and the Miami Heat had to start going in a new direction. They had Hassan Whiteside and Dragic, but outside of that, they didn't really have any depth, but they didn't know it yet because they had guys like Winslow from the draft. After a very rough start to the 2017 season, the Heat quickly turned things around and were red hot down the stretch and finished 500. But unfortunately, they missed the playoffs as the 9th seed, and the team was very disappointed by it. Dragic and Whiteside both had solid seasons, but again, they weren't championship contenders with this roster. With the 14th pick in the 2018 NBA draft, the Heat selected Bam Adebayo out of Kentucky. Since they finished the previous season so hot, they basically ran it back with the same roster and even ended up bringing Dywane Wade back for a 2nd round pick to bring some excitement to the team. They finished the season with 44 wins, but lost to the Sixers in 5 games. 2019 was basically Dywane Wade's farewell tour, and the Heat were just an average team, but instead of tanking, they wanted to be competitive. They finished the season as the 10 seed with 38 wins, and it was clear they needed to change what they were doing. In the 2019 draft, the Heat took Tyler Hero out of Kentucky with the 13th pick. This franchise is just so good at getting quality guys later in the first round. Also, the Heat made a splash to bring in Jimmy Butler in a 4-team trade. This team just refused to have a bad season and kept going at it and trying different things. In 2020, the young players and even the undrafted players on the Heat were really starting to develop, and Bam Adebayo was becoming an all-star. In the 2020 season, the Heat also traded for Andre Iguodala and Jay Crowder. 2020 was of course the pandemic year, and the season ended early, so the Heat finished with 44 wins as the 5 seed in the East. Then once the season picked back up in the bubble, the Heat absolutely took off and had a legendary run that every NBA fan will remember for a long time. They swept the Pacers, then took out the top-seeded Bucks, and then the Celtics in the conference finals. They ended up losing the finals in 6 games to the Lakers, but Jimmy Butler gave his all, and this run was the moment that everyone knew Butler had that dog in him. Basically, ever since this finals, the Heat have been running it back with the same team. They made minor moves like bringing in Victor Oladipo and other things like that, but it wasn't until the current 2023 season for the team to get another shot to make a deep run. And out of all the seasons, this was the one that was looking like it would be a failure the most. If I'm being completely honest, the Heat were very average all season, but Jimmy Butler flipped the switch as soon as the postseason started, and the team fed off his energy. They beat the Bucks and caused them to fire their coach. They then beat the Knicks, and they now have a 3-1 lead over the Celtics, and if they finish the job, they will probably cause some changes in Boston as well. It's actually unbelievable what Jimmy Butler has been able to do this postseason, and some people are saying that he's been like a clone of Michael Jordan. I really hope that we can see him win a ring this year because he absolutely deserves it. He's one of the hardest working players in the league, and this year he has really focused on making teammates better and improving the chemistry. Let me know in the comments below if you think the Heat have what it takes to win it all, because I'm very curious to hear what you guys have to say. I just can't wait to see how things unfold because this season has been such an absolute blast, and I hope the finish is just as entertaining. Anyways, thank you all so much if you made it to this point in the video, and if you haven't yet, make sure to like and subscribe. Also comment below what you would like to see next. Make sure to stay tuned for more videos in the future with the season wrapping up, and until next time, I will see you all later.